Hey everybody, this is Dave coming at you from Grand Blanc again. I haven't done a video in a little while, but I've been really busy. On my last video, I think I told you about what we were going to be doing, and I wish I could get more footage of us actually doing the work, but it's usually just me and my phone, and that's about it. And so I just try to point out things that we're doing that just for information, just to pass on the information, I guess. So yeah, I talked about we were going to frame walls to set the beams, because some of these long beams, like that long beam right there, weighs probably about 700 pounds. So we basically just built 3-foot wide walls and set them on the pads. We offset them to the left or right, so when we go to do the stanchion poles later, the walls aren't in our way. And a lot of times beams will pocket from one side to another with concrete, but in this case I have a lot of these beams, you can see, like this one, they just float there for now, and once we get the joist going from one side to the other and get that secured really well, and get some weight on the house as far as like the exterior walls and making sure everything is anchored down really well, then we'll put the stanchion poles in. We have all of those walls, and we went ahead and shimmed them up within 1/8 of an inch height, and they're exactly dead on in the center of the beam, left to right of these long walls. So those are pretty much all good to go. It's August 31st right now. We're planning on getting the first floor joist delivery on September 6th. So it's a really exciting time. We went ahead and just started planning ahead of time, and on the mud sill, we just put ahead, here's a layout, 16 on center. And one thing I wanted to point out too, when you're doing 16 on center, there's tons of videos out there that talk about if you want the sheet of plywood to land on the center of a board, you would start 3/4 inches back from 16 on center, so that would be 15 1/4. So in the trades we just call it 15 1/4 and go. But in this case, the top flange of the 14, it's a 14-inch tall TGI, and the top flange is 2.5. So in that case, you would basically take 2.5 and split it in half. So it would basically be, 16 on center, measure back from 16, 1.25 inches, mark the line, and usually what we would do, especially if we're working by ourselves, at that first line, so from the very corner, 16-inch line, measure back 1.25 inches, we'd usually set a nail, and then from there just go 16 and go. And that's how you would lay these out. So in a case like this, for example, here's your layout. So it'd be 2.5 inches wide. When you build your wall above it, you'll want to lay that out 3/4 back, because the stud is going to be 1.5 inches. So what you really want to aim for is you want to aim for the fact that you've got 2.5 inches, and you want to land that 1.5 inches right in the center of that. Sounds complicated, but it really isn't, because once you know that this layout's good, what we're going to do is when we put this rim joist, bond board, or whatever you want to call it right here, we're going to go ahead and lay out on the outside of that, our layout as well. That way when we sheet the deck and then it's time to build the exterior walls, we can look right away on the outside of the house right where layout is, and then whatever stud's the most convenient of whatever wall you're building, wherever your random stud layout will land on the 16 on centers, that would be a good reference point. Obviously all your jack studs and king studs and door openings and stuff won't, those just land where they land, based upon where your windows and doors are located. But anyways, yeah, I haven't done a video in a little while, but yeah, all these beams are set in perfect, and it's kind of nice when you come down like this, you can see that, it's nice and perfect straight across right there. And we have we strung across this way, and all I did is I took my pump jack, my hydraulic jacks with a stud, and just went up each end at a time. And you want to leave it a little bit less, 1/16 of an inch. That way when you put the joists in, and the idea is once you have the floor on and everything's liquid nailed and tight, you want to be able to jack up maybe the most 1/4 inch. You don't want to have all that stuff moving around once you've established it and nailed it. But it wouldn't hurt it. I mean, in a way, you could be almost like 1 inch off and it probably wouldn't hurt anything. But as it stands right now, we're about a 1/16 or perfect below the string. So that'll work out good. That way you can run your joist across, and we'll deal with setting those stanchion poles later. In a way, theoretically, I could build this entire house with all the weight on it on these walls down here, because there's so much strength of it being all fastened together that you really could build the whole entire house right on these walls and then do the stanchion poles. But I think I'll put the stanchion poles in once we have the floor joist in, it's sheeted, and then the exterior walls in and sheeted. That'll be some good weight on this, and then we'll set those exact. And then the way those stanchion poles go in, there's like an H clip that just fastens up to the bottom of the eye joist, and then there's an adjustment shaft inside of it at the bottom that you just screw up or down, and then you just put in 4 anchors. And the steel guy said that I only have to use 2 out of the 4 holes, because then that pole at the bottom will be covered by 4 inches of concrete. So that's pretty much what we'll do. And then over here at the back, I went ahead and we got the door wall built. I had to get with my window guy to get the window dimensions, but we got this in, and I had to get my excavator's backhoe to lift it up in place, because this is a 2x8 wall and it is heavy. I mean, just the header there was hard for my son and I to lift. And when I say, I mean, it wasn't like we couldn't lift it. It was heavy, but I don't want to sound like a pansy, but it's got some weight to it. And then in Michigan, where I live, any span that's 4 feet or wider should have 2 jack studs like that. This was literally 48 foot 3/4, but the way I see it is, you don't want the inspector to be like, oh, you know what I'm saying. I don't even know if he's a stickler or if he's not so picky, but it makes your house stronger, so why not? And then pressure treated all the way down. Like, I basically wrapped the entire thing with pressure treated. I put, you can't see it because it's a 2x8 wall, but there's some mud, oh here it is, mud sealer all the way around it. I did like a box type header. So that's actually 2 2x12s nailed together, and then I just used the 2x8 on the top and bottom. That just makes it to where when your jack stud runs up, you still have some wood to, it's better for the window. You kind of have to have this for, that's your window flange can nail on it, and for drywall and stuff. And it makes it really nice because then you can fill this with, in this case, since it's a 2x8 wall, you can almost get R13 in there, but in a 2x6 wall, if you did it this way, and I'll show you in future videos when we do that, but 2-inch rigid foam goes really good right in there. And it's great because wood by itself, like this right here, is a terrible insulator as far as, you know, really cold outside, and it's just not a good insulator. So anywhere you can, especially with the headers, if you can build it where you can put some type of insulation in it, that's great. And so what else? Oh, on this door opening, I basically measured 6 inches up from the footing. Right here, in a previous video I talked about how we're going to have 2-inch rigid foam. So I measured up 2 inches plus the 4-inch slab, so 6 inches up. And I think I even went 6.5, because why not? Just give yourself a little bit of extra play there. And then from there, it's 83 inches to the top here. So I think they called for 82 3/4 rough opening. So I went 83 plus another 1/2 inch. So I'm already 3/4 bigger than what the rough opening needs to be. Worst case scenario, if it's a little loose when you go to put it in, just pack this back down with a 1x8, and that's how you do that. But I'm glad to get this in because this is actually the first official wall framing for the whole house. So yeah, it's coming along, and I just figured I'd give you an update. Now I'm going to see a bluegrass concert tonight, so that'll be fun. All right, signing off. Bye.